Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and now we're back in business with a community showdown featuring Musion, who shall be led by Valkanos and the Red Duke. Certainly a rare sighting indeed, seeing Musion in action. And today, my friends, he faces off against the Dark Elves, who shall be led by Hod Toward, and it looks like it's going to be Marathi as well. Now, as far as the Musion army goes, here in the front line, it is going to be Zombie Nation into the sunset, more or less. Going to be 5 of those bad boys. Zombies, of course, very, very cost-effective for 100 gold. They don't do much damage, but they certainly take a beating like champs, and they do have 18 weapon strength, so they can, when they do occasionally connect versus light armor, can do some damage. In the secondary line, it's going to be Graveguard and Skeleton Warriors, Stearnsmen, of course, being the anchor piece here in the middle. Stearnsmen are just such a good infantry unit. I feel like just no matter what the matchup is, they're almost always good. These bad boys can trade very well with chaff units, like, for example, Dread Spears, Bleak Swords, and against more elite units, they might struggle, like Hargoneth Executioners, but even still, they're going to take some time to kill. Regeneration, Silver Shields, pretty good stats, bonus versus infantry. Cannot complain. Now for the leadership kit, he's going to be going for double White King. I think White Kings are better than Banshees probably in the Dark Elf matchup. Scab Scrape is very good. So basically this is a breath ability, and it's pretty good against like Dread Spears and tightly packed infantry formation. So if you take a look here, like honestly, most players in multiplayer are always going to be spreading their units out to the max. It's the more optimal way to play in general because more units can get into combat, whereas in campaign there's a little bit of variance. Sometimes you want less surface area in the front to minimize the buffs that campaign gets in melee, but in this case, the Scab Scrape is really, really good at tearing through these troops. So I definitely like that inclusion there on the double White King. In the back, we do have the Dire Wolves, who appear to be looking like tactical reserve right now. Those guys look like they weren't deployed. They've been left in their initial box formation, but we'll see. Over here on the high ground, we do have a couple of Fellbats, Vargeists, who I think look incredibly awesome here with the Musion color scheme. It's like, I don't know, I feel like these guys are like a 90s toy when they have the yellow hair. Over here, we do have the Terrorgeist as well. And it is going to be the Red Duke. So Red Duke is he's certainly not bad. He's been a little bit overshadowed by the Lord of the Helm of Discord, or the Blood Dragon Lord, who does have the Helm of Discord. But I still think Red Duke is a very good assassin. Elsif is a very strong ability in the vein of Hunter of Champions, and yeah, I think he's still quite solid. So for the forces of the Dark Elves, it's going to be Dread Spears, pretty standard stuff. It looks like it's going to be kind of a Marathi Death Star of sorts. Here we do have a Death Hag. Death Hag is going to have her the Fury of Cain, as well as the Chillblade. So yeah, it's basically a Marathi Death Star, lowering combat stats across the board. A Hydra mixed in, and a Canate Assassin as well. So yeah, got a couple chaff units in the front. Dread Spears going to take that initial beating. Hargoneth Executioners here in the back. Hella Hella Chill Spears. Dread Spears, and it looks like here in the far back, we do have Coldland Dread Knights, as well as the Knights of the Ebon Claw, who I always call Knights of the Ebon Legion, because I have indeed been playing quite a bit of Magic the Gathering, as I do recover from my hand procedure here. So let's get this show on the road, guys, and see if the vampires can crack this very fearsome Death Star. We have seen this build work pretty well against vampires in the past. We had a replay go up. I believe it was with Namru about a week ago. Maybe a little bit less than a week ago, where the Dark Elves were able to take this one. The build, I think, was a little bit different. He had a Foot Death Hag. Although, yeah, I think it was a Foot Death Hag instead of the Shrine. And he had a Medusa Shrine, but we'll see if it makes a difference. So the battle's underway. The Undead Hordes are lining up here. And here comes the first Scab Scrape cast. And it doesn't do too much against armor, but yeah, you can see 2 casts there. Not bad. Does a little bit of poking damage against Helabroni, and also takes, 5-8% off the Hargoneth Executioners. I mean, that's still good value at the end of the day. Now, the fighting in the front line is quite pitched. It looks like a Pit of Shades is going to be going down here, as is a Breath Attack from the big old dragon. Oh, I love Pit of Shades. Such a cool looking spell. But the Breath Attack, very, very devastating for sure. Really tears apart the spears. Also does damage to Marathi, but the Pit of Shades, wow, that was a really, really good Pit of Shades, actually. That pretty much one-shotted those Graveguards. That must have been an overcast. Pit of Shades has a really, really good AP value, so beautiful usage there from the foul Dark Elves, although I suppose both of these guys are quite foul indeed. So up in the sky, we do have the Red Duke being very patient, using zombie summons on the ground. Marathi, of course, debuffing the Stearnsmen. They're down to 11 melee attack, which I'm sure they're certainly not terribly happy about. Over here we do have the Goose. Goose is jumping in, going after the Knights of the Ebon Claw, as are the Vargeists and the Red Duke. A little bit scary, as there are spears nearby, so the spears will give consistent poke against the Vargeists, and the Knights are very tough to break, so if they turn and fight, it might be a little bit tricky for the vampires to get out unimpeded. Although here you can see some of the vampires, yeah, they are going to be turning and escaping here, and shouldn't take too much damage. So ultimately, pretty good trade there for the vamps. But the middle of the Death Star is still quite functional. Marathi, I would imagine, is... Wow, she didn't bring Soul Stealer. Very interesting. That's one of her key abilities for healing up. She isn't the tankiest of characters, so that's a little bit of an odd choice in my opinion, but it's still cool to see other abilities being used. Here we do have a Hydra fighting the mighty White King. White King isn't going to be terribly efficient against Hydra. He doesn't have any sort of big anti-large bonus, and he also is very nullified in terms of his stats right now. Another Pit of Shades going down to the back here. Going to be hitting Fellbats, Skeleton Warriors, and Zombies. So mostly chaff, but you're showing the power of Pit of Shades. I mean, this is pretty much going to annihilate all 3 of these units. Granted, the combined value of those units isn't much. At least 600-700 gold down the drain. I mean, that's worth a cast, right? So far, Pit of Shades have been very, very good for the Dark Elves. The Vampires have been also picking their fights quite well, have taken very little damage on their big single entity here, the Red Duke, as well as the White King. And it looks like the Goose, I think, is still in good shape as well. Yes, the Goose is in the back fighting against the Harganeth Executioner, so I'm sure he's having a good time back there. And here the White King, unfortunately, is being rammed by the Death Hag, it looks like, and it's certainly not a good engagement for the White King. The Hag is a bonus for his infantry piece up on her mighty Altar of Cain. And yeah, he's taking some work. Marathi's there also, as is the Coldland Dread Knights. Marathi's got to be careful, though. If White King does decide to turn and attack Marathi, she could take actually a huge amount of damage, so certainly a bit of a liability there. Now here the War Hydra in an isolated situation, in combat here with the White King, as well as the Red Duke. How's its health doing? It looks like it's about 3,900, but it is healing quite rapidly. It looks like it's out healing some of the DPS right now, even. And of course, will get its healing procs. In an attempt to actually break the monster, it looks like the Vampire Count player here is going to be dropping a Zombie Summon right here, which is nice. Gab Scrape going down here in the back, poking those Dread Spears. But again, the Zombie Summon is being used to try and trigger a leadership bomb here on the Hydra, because being attacked from the back is a pretty substantial leadership hit. Granted, it looks like it wasn't enough. The Hydra wasn't taking enough damage. It is able to escape here, and also gets its healing proc back up to 4,200. Man, Hydras are... I feel like Hydras are a very underrated unit in competitive play. Like, a lot of Dark Elf players like to respond or rely very heavily on repeater crossbows and, you know, those type of units and Slaanesha's Harvesters, but I really do feel like Hydras are super underrated. I mean, yeah, their stats aren't, like, super, you know, impressive on a first look, but their healing capabilities are just insane. I feel like they're always healing. So both players have pretty much secured a flank. The Dark Elves here have secured this low position, basically cleaning up the Graveguard and the Sternsman, which is really, really important. And here the Vampires have more or less kind of won this engagement. Granted, there still are Harganeth Executioners here, as well as a couple other units. But I don't know, it looks like the Dark Elves are actually have a lot of stuff left. Yeah, the Coldland Dread Knights are in good shape. Fury of Cain is active on them. Here, the last of the Undead Infantry are basically being cleaved asunder. And of course, in conjunction with tournament rules, I'm not sure if this was being played in the tournament, but if there are no infantry left for the Vampires, then they have to engage with their big beasties to keep them from... And a lot of people actually wonder, like, why does that rule exist? Well, for example, a big problem they had on ladder in the early days of Total War Warhammer is that you would basically see players that would just bring, like, you know, 6 Vargulfs and, like, you know, Lord and a Mortis Engine. And what would happen is, if they started to lose a battle because they didn't like their army pick, they would just run around the map and kite you, and it's very easy to draw kite with single entities. Whereas if you have infantry, for example, they can't kite quite as easily. So you have to have like something engaging, right? And that's why tournaments do it. Of course, quick battle's still the Wild West, but yeah, most people, at least from the replays I do get, are from the tournament community and the Discord that I run. And if you guys are interested in joining the Discord, I'll be making probably a video soon with all the details on how to get into tournaments and stuff. So I'll be working on that this week, and of course I'll probably drop a link in the comment section as well. Anyways, Harganeth Executioners here are in mortal combat. Nice breath attack from the Hydra is able to clip the wings here of the Red Duke. Assassin's Trophy is active as well. The Vargeist down to 4 models, only 34 kills, so they haven't performed super well this game, but if you can keep them alive and chase off, you know, these healthy routing Harganeth Executioners, that can be quite impactful, but currently balance of power is very even. Big breath attack coming from the Goose here. About 400 damage against those guys, a couple hundred damage against the Coldland Dread Knights as well. K8 Assassin. I really like K8 Assassins as a pick against a lot of the flying factions or factions that have a lot of flyers. It gives you good steady DPS against those flying units. It's not like, you know, backbreaking. Oh, nice breath attack from above there by Valkanos. Able to go downtown to the Hydra, doing some huge damage. And I think this is kind of setting up. If you can, you know, soften up that Hydra enough, go in for an Alpha Strike, you have to really look, even though it looks like the Dark Elves have a lot of stuff left, the Death Hag is going to be terrible against these flyers. Marathi will be good, but she's very, very damaged as well. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. And here on the ground, Coldland Dread Knights are in mortal combat once again, but the Zombie Summon is going to provide some very nice buffering. Death Hag getting in there, going to be ramming. I love how it just like rams the Red Duke, so funny. He's pretty healthy though, and Red Duke has Invocation as well, although he does hurt himself on the Overcast. That heal is going to be very, very substantial. It hits the Goose, it hits the Red Duke, probably compensates for the damage he took there, and also hits the White King, so a lot of valuable healing. The Dread Knights are imbued with the Fury of Cain, so they're going to be quite saucy in combat, but Marathi is actually getting kind of whooped on here. And I really do think that the Dark Elf player, like, for example, if he had brought a Soul Stealer and was able to drop it right now, that could be a game-winning play. I think Soul Stealer with Marathi, with Malekith, is always a staple. Granted, I understand the Pit of Shades is very expensive, especially if you're overcasting it, so it can be a little bit trying to get all those spells off, but Soul Stealer is just so damn good. But yeah, I have to say, his Pit of Shade play was masterful this game. So Marathi here is going to be running for the hills, 215, 40 HP? Yeah, 40 HP. I was about to say 40 leadership. No, it's actually 40 HP and negative 10 leadership. And it looks like the Vampires are kind of pulling ahead here in the fourth quarter as these Flyers are holding well. Red Duke is getting poked down, but it's not huge damage. Single target Invocation of the Heck, a very, very good choice here. Going to be able to heal him up. keep things from getting ugly. And Marathi, I would imagine, is either shattered or running. Yeah, really good awareness here. And guys, forgot to point out, the dreaded tactical reserves have come into effect, so trying to intimidate his opponent by leaving these units in the back. But, man, if those dogs had come in sooner, this would have been a probably a much quicker game here. They would have been able to break a lot of this stuff. But nonetheless, the dogs being left in tactical reserve, making a statement. And here comes the Red Duke charging down. Going to be rear charging into the back of the Hydra. Certainly want to break that beastie. The Hydra is the last kind of standing threat against both Duke as well as the Goose. Hydras do not do fire damage. Yeah, they do fire damage with their breath attacks, but not with their melee attacks. I was about to say, it might potentially be good against the Red Duke, or especially good with extra fire damage. Although, is Duke even weak to fire? I have to double check that. Anyways, breath attack coming down here, going right on top of the War Hydra. Here comes the Goose. Going to be going in and, yeah, going after the Death Hag. But at this point, I don't see too much that the Dark Elves can do. They still do have a Canate Assassin, but yeah, he's going to struggle against the Goose plus the White King. And yeah, the Vargeist are doing a great job as well, chasing down routing units, making sure they're not coming back. And now you can see a lot of the high value stuff here is breaking for the Elves. All they really have is the Canate Assassin, who would not be able to beat a Goose plus also the White King. So, well played. That's pretty much going to be GG. The Hydra does fight to the bitter end there. You guys can see it's a little bit of a foregone conclusion there as it does grind out. But well played to both players. That was a really, really fun match. I definitely like seeing the Red Duke in action, and the sub-faction schemes are always fun. And yeah, Musion has no advantages, so pretty much by picking Musion, it's giving your opponent an advantage. So it's rare you see them in multiplayer. I have a feeling this was a ladder game, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to see for sure. So yeah, good build. You know, Duke, double Scab Scrape, White Kings were good. He did a really good job of isolating and kind of picking off those threats and avoiding the counterpunch himself. And yeah, really good breath attacks, really good Pit of Shades from Hod Towered. Just great stuff across the board. It was a really fun competitive match, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that one between Musion and the Dark Elves. And until next time, guys, we'll be back with more content, all sorts of fun stuff on the horizon. But until then, you guys stay safe, and we'll see you on the other side. Take care.